So this is essentially a porous environment. And for a president or a former president, that really does present a major challenge for the Secret Service. Now, when Donald Trump was the sitting president, and I covered him down in Palm Beach frequently, the access to the perimeter of the golf course was much more limited. Certainly the public roads remained open, but the sidewalks did not. That changed when he became the former president, and we heard that directly from the Palm Beach County Sheriff earlier today, saying that if Donald Trump had been the sitting president, there may have been more of a perimeter around him. So it all sort of speaks to the fact that these open courses, these open areas really do present a major challenge for the Secret Service. The president essentially doesn't have anywhere to go if trouble arises. There is no armored suburban sort of trailing him in a way that there normally would be. For a president, it is one of the only times they're able to walk outdoors at any sort of length. And that's certainly, you don't want, as the Secret Service, to be able to tell a president, no, you can't do that. But it has raised some new questions about the security and the security protocols around golf courses and presidents.
It's also questions, of course.
units here that immediately sealed off the area. Fortunately, we were able to locate a witness that came to us and said, hey, I saw the guy running out of the bushes. He jumped into a black Nissan, and I took a picture of the vehicle and the tank, which was great. So we had that information. Our real-time crime center put it out to the license plate readers. And we were able to get a hit on that vehicle on I-95 as it was headed into Martin County. We got a hold of Martin County Sheriff's Office, alerted them, and they spotted the vehicle and pulled it over and detained the guy. After that, we took the witness that witnessed the incident, flew him up there, and he identified as the person that he saw running out of the bushes and jumped into the car. Now, in the bushes where this guy was is a AK-47 style rifle with a scope, 2 backpacks which were hung on the fence that had ceramic tile in them, and a GoPro, which he was going to take pictures of. So those are being processed right now. The Secret Service agent that was on the course did a fantastic job. What they do is they have an agent that jumps one hole ahead of time to where the president was at. And he was able to spot this rifle barrel sticking out of the fence and immediately engage that individual, at which time the individual took off.
Well, joining us now is Chris Swecker, former FBI Assistant Director for the Criminal Investigative Division, and Juliette Kayyem, CNN Senior National Security Analyst and a former DHS Assistant Secretary. Chris, obviously we're still trying to learn more about what happened. Given what we know now, what stands out to you the most?
Well, the big question, I think, is, and it's been discussed, how did he know to be there at that time, at that location? I mean, there's only 3 ways he would know. He's very lucky, and he had a lucky guess, or he's been surveilling Donald Trump or setting up a stationary surveillance or moving surveillance, or he had some information that he shouldn't have had, because apparently Trump, this was a last-minute decision to go play golf that day. So the third option is pretty disturbing, and I hope that's not the case. But that would implicate a third person if that were the case.
In terms of, Chris, figuring out, having any kind of, I mean, if it's not somebody telling him, there's other people who use that golf course. I assume investigators would also be looking right now at, did anybody send out a tweet or take a picture and say, hey, I'm golfing at this club today, and the former president is here. And also looking for any surveillance cameras to see, was this guy in this car surveilling the area today, yesterday, in the last week or so?
Yeah, I mean, I would be interviewing everyone that knew anything about his schedule whatsoever. I mean, you raised some other possibilities too. Maybe somebody posted on social media, hey, Trump's golfing here today. But, and he would have, if he were doing surveillance or he had notice, he would have about an hour and 15 minutes to get to that location and set up his little nest that he had with his ceramic, the ceramic in the backpack, which obviously was a sort of a bulletproof, an attempt to set up a bulletproof location there. So he would have, it takes about an hour and 15 minutes to play 5 or 6 holes. If he knew when he went off that he was going off, he would have time to pre-position himself. So, there are other possibilities, but there's a parallel investigation going on, obviously, on him in general, but I think there's a much, or at least as robust investigation on who knew about his schedule or how that information could have gotten out.
Juliette, what stood out to you about the items law enforcement found left by the detained person? The GoPro, the ceramic plates.
Yeah. Yeah, so basically, I think the GoPro is a tell. This was a assassination attempt. It was also performative. He clearly, and we've seen this in mass shootings before in New Zealand, for example, that he wanted to document the kill. Like in that, I mean that as basic as it sounds, that he, whether it was live streaming or he thought he was going to get away and post it somehow. This is someone with an active social media presence. He knows how it works, and though he is older than we've seen more recently in terms of the sort of 20-something white males, he knew how to do this. So to me, the GoPro shows a level of sophistication, a level of planning, and that he not only wanted to document the assassination attempt because of the plates and the defensive posture that he clearly was anticipating that they would either find him or he would be engaged by law enforcement, that he wanted that to be filmed as well. So for me, the thing that I am very curious about, as I've been saying, is given, for example, that his son has said, well, this is coming out of nowhere. Now that's a son, and we take it for the fact it is his father. I am very curious about where he was after the Butler, Pennsylvania assassination attempt, because in this world of increased violence, of political violence, you worry very much about copycats. And if there is evidence, or if we learn about behavior that changes, he shows up in Florida, he's staking the place, then we have to be very worried about, as we already are, given the threat environment of the weeks ahead. And that's the sobering aspect of this in so many ways. I mean, I never thought I'd be on CNN talking about one assassination attempt. The fact I'm talking about two in just as many months, basically, it's shocking.
Chris, school shooters often now, we later find out, studied the actions of other school shooters, going all the way back to Columbine. Do you think it likely that this person would have, to Juliet's point, studied what occurred in Butler and what the actions of the person that, what that person did?
I mean, it's entirely possible. I mean, I think that all these mass shootings have a viral aspect to it, where you see it, the idea gets planted, you have an unstable individual, and maybe some ideology mixed in with it, and they could just go off. So I think that's possible. This guy obviously had a little bit of a Trump fixation. I mean, he was definitely a Trump detractor. He had done some other odd things. He had gone to Ukraine supposedly and tried to recruit some fighters for Ukraine. He had a 2-hour standoff with police in Greensboro, North Carolina. Had a machine gun, was charged with weapon of mass destruction. This guy was a bit of a wingnut and quite unpredictable. So they're going to dissect this guy's life, and there'll be searches on his computer, on his laptop, on his mobile phone. They'll go through all the electronic media, look at his social network, not just his family, but all the logical people. I think this picture will become clear in a day or so.
Yeah, it also seems like he left a trail, like he didn't try to wipe out or take out any of those accounts at this stage. Thank you, Chris, Juliet. Appreciate it. We're getting breaking new details right now about the man being detained and what he has said about former President Trump on social media. We'll have more on that news next.
This is CNN Breaking News.
We have some new information about the man detained tonight after an attempted assassination of former President Donald Trump. The 58-year-old man has used social media to criticize the former president. According to authorities, the former president was in the middle of a round of golf today. A Secret Service agent was walking ahead of the president and his party to secure the area. That's when the agent saw the barrel of a rifle poking out of the fence. We don't know at this moment whether shots were fired by the man with the rifle, the man they've now detained. But the Secret Service says that an agent did fire shots toward that person. The man ran away. Authorities were able to capture him thanks to the help of an eyewitness who identified the man, took a photograph of his vehicle. They've now detained that person. Authorities also released these photos. They say that in the bushes where the man was seen, they found an AK-47 style rifle, a scope, 2 backpacks, ceramic tiles, and a GoPro camera. The ceramic tiles were in those backpacks you see hanging up as a kind of fence to protect the alleged shooter. Authorities also addressed how someone with a rifle and scope would be able to get near the former president again just 2 months after that previous assassination attempt.
We noticed that the rifle was pointed out. Our agents engaged. We are not sure right now if the individual was able to take a shot at our agents, but for sure our agents were able to engage with the subject. I don't know that.
Doesn't appear so.
The former president later told supporters in a fundraising email that he is safe and well and that, quote, nothing will slow me down. Our Evan Perez is following the investigation for us tonight, including the social media accounts of the person now detained. So what's the FBI saying about what happened today and how it all went down?
Well, Anderson, Ryan Routh is the person who's now been detained. Now, we don't know, right now, the language that the authorities are using, they're not directly accusing him of attempting to carry out this assassination, but it is clear he is the only person who has been detained. And we've learned a lot more just in the last few hours looking at some of his social media accounts. We know the FBI is combing through these accounts to try to get a little bit better picture of a possible motivation, but a lot of it appears to emerge from those social media posts. He's a staunch and frequent critic of Donald Trump on those social media accounts, and he also is in support of Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. I'll read you just a part of one of the references he makes to the Butler assassination attempt.
There is a storm coming, an event like the world has never seen before. The emerging event will have little to do with weather, but more about developing situations that were foreseen many years ago. We have always warned you during severe weather and news events that affected many. Now, Channel 1 Atlanta begins a new series to warn you about what's coming soon and make sure you are prepared. Join us on a new journey, as according to a recent survey, a lot of people believe we are living in the last days. Current news events show us now more than ever. In history, time is setting the stage for the coming storm, a new series, now playing only on Channel 1 Atlanta.
Firearm, perhaps give them a sense of how long he's been planning this. Clearly, he was aware and noticed what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania just a few weeks ago because he posted on social media about it. So now the question is, how long has he been planning to target the former president? At least, again, looking at what happened today, there has to have been some kind of planning. One of the things that certainly has been raised, I've seen Kristen Holmes reporting this, Anderson, the former president wasn't supposed to be golfing today. And so the big question is, then how did this person know to be at this specific location? How long has they been there? How long have they been pursuing this goal? All of those things, of course, the FBI is going to try to answer in the coming days.
Jonathan, what stands out to you right now? What are you hearing from about the Secret Service about this event?
Well, listen, good evening, Anderson. When you think about this from a threat perspective, the Secret Service looks at this in two parts, motivation and intent. And let me talk to the motivation first. Really, this is the underlying drivers that, we're pushing this individual to engage in this act and launch this attack. And really, when you think about motivational factors, oftentimes they're like narcissistic grievances. My thought is better than yours. I'm better than you. We see this oftentimes with, assassins and people who engage in acts of shooting and mass shooting. So that, what we hear here is like, what were those grievances? What was, and that's what the FBI is looking into right now is those underlying reasons. But the intent here is really important. It's that conscious decision and the preparation for the attack. And I think that when we look at this, it's really disturbing to see that this individual was able to find a location. I'm sure that as this investigation goes on, we're going to see that there was probably some pre-attack surveillance, that the shooter chose this location for a very specific line of sight reason. Again, going towards intent. We see the GoPro. This is trying to record and potentially live stream this attack. The nuance of the ballistic plates, the ceramic plates in backpacks, again, really anticipating some sort of fight that's going on here. So when we look at like those things, the motivation and the intent combined together with this new reporting, it really paints a very dangerous picture of this individual. And again, I think that the actions by the Secret Service today and the coordination and communication with local and state law enforcement partners really averted a tragic event from actually happening.
Yeah, Jonathan, the presence, the fact that he set up a GoPro on the fence, I don't know if it was going to be pointing at him or if it was going to be pointing downrange. I'm not sure which shot he wanted to get from that GoPro, but the fact that Julia Kaiman had mentioned, the Christchurch shooter who live streamed, obviously, Hamas terrorists using, documenting and even live streaming some of their terrorism on October 7th. The idea that he had the presence of mind to take time to actually set up that GoPro in addition to building that shield of ceramic plating in front of him is interesting. Can you explain the difference just in protecting a sitting president versus a former president and a presidential candidate?
Well, Anderson, I think that the labels have to be eliminated here by the Secret Service of like what differentiates this person from that person based upon their political role. We have to really look at the environment now from a threat-based methodology, because Donald Trump does not fit the former president model. He's not Barack Obama, he's not President Bush or Clinton, right? His threat environment is drastically different, both from domestic actors and the overarching threat from Iran. So that is something that is unprecedented with a former president and the current Republican nominee for the office of the presidency. So we have to eliminate these labels and really focus on applying every appropriate measure to protect the individual based upon the threats that they're facing. And we now know, because of today's actions, that these threats are just compounding for the former president. And the Secret Service has to be aware of that, and they have to act quickly, because while nothing happened today, we still have to protect 360 days a year, 24 hours a day. And this dynamic threat environment is changing rapidly, and the Secret Service needs to stay one step ahead, not behind, in their protective responsibilities.
Evan, you wanted to add something?
I mean, I think what Jonathan is raising is a really, really fascinating and important point, because one of the things we've had this conversation, certainly with officials over the last, and some of the elected officials and the authorities, Anderson, over the last few weeks since what happened in Butler. And if you have to remember that the whole system is designed for the continuation of government, right, to protect the head of state and then the vice president, because obviously, control of nuclear weapons. I mean, that's the whole system is geared towards that. But we've never had someone like Donald Trump before, a former president who's so active and basically has been running for office since he left in January 2021. And also obviously the Iran threat. So all of those things make him so much different. And Jonathan is raising a very good point that I think Congress and the Secret Service are going to have to figure out how to address in the coming weeks and months.
And Jonathan, the former president received more Secret Service protection after the attempted assassination in Butler. Now there's been this. Does it mean there's going to be more protection for the former president? Or are they going to try to curtail the use of, golf clubs, or at least make the golf club not publicly open when the former president's there? I mean, are there other steps to take? Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not hearing. We'll try to get your audio back. Everybody stick around. We're going to have more with you later in the program. Up next, Congressman Jared Moskowitz joins me. He's part of a congressional panel that's looking into the first attempt on the former president's life. We'll get his thoughts on what happened today when we come back. For now, breaking news. The second attempted assassination of the former president, this time at his golf club in West Palm Beach, Florida, early this afternoon. Authorities detaining a man shortly after a Secret Service agent spotted a rifle barrel sticking out of the fence surrounding the course. The agent fired at the man. They eventually detained this person. The man's son had said in a statement that it's not like his father, quote, to do anything crazy, much less violent, though he does have a history with law enforcement. Our Kyung La just reported that the father's had brushes with the law, including once barricading himself with a firearm inside a business in a standoff with police. I'm joined now by Florida Democratic Congressman Jared Moskowitz. He's also a member of a bipartisan task force formed by Congress in the wake of that first attempted assassination. Congressman, first of all, your reaction to this second apparent assassination attempt on the former president just 2 months?
Thanks, Anderson. Thanks for having me. Well, I never thought in my first 2 years in Congress that I would be appointed to an assassination task force based on an attempted assassination on a former president. Little did I think that while on that task force, just 2 months from the first assassination attempt, only a month into the task force, there would be a second attempt. And so I'm deeply concerned about what's going on right now. I'm deeply concerned, quite frankly, for the former president's safety. The Secret Service has a lot to explain how an individual was able to get, again, this close to the former president.
Do you expect, first of all, your task force will now also examine this incident?
Yeah, based on the chairman's response and the ranking member, it looks like we are asking the same questions we're asking about the first assassination attempt, now about the second, asking for the FBI and the Secret Service to come in and give us a briefing and share that information. So I expect, Anderson, that it's like Groundhog Day, that we're going to be doing the same exact sort of investigation that we're doing in the first one now into the second one. And we still don't know the motive of the individual in the first assassination attempt. And so, look, I'm asking for the FBI, Secret Service, Homeland Security to come out and start sharing some of the information with the American people. You know this, Anderson. You see it on social media. On the left, people think, it was staged. On the right, people think it was the deep state. And that's because we're not sharing information with the American people. This is something we have to do. I mean, I have a lot of questions on how this individual got his firearm. In Florida, we have red flag laws here, very tough red flag laws that actually were passed in the wake of the Parkland shooting 6 years ago. I'm about a mile from Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School right now, where I graduated from. And based on his previous history, he should not have been able to obtain a firearm in the state of Florida if he did get it here. And that's not clear. He may have brought it into the state. And so there are a lot of questions here, but I think the American people should be deeply concerned on why a second individual, clearly disturbed, was able to get this close to the former president with a weapon.
It is. I mean, again, I've just been surprised just in the last hours as I look at maps of the golf course to learn, that it's on several major roads and that those roads are open and the sidewalks are open, and the club itself is open to members and to their guests, even when the former president is on there. Are there specific questions you have tonight that are like first and foremost in your mind?
Well, first of all, both of these assassination attempts were outside, and they were outside in areas that were both, were wooded. They had a lot of trees, a lot of brush. And so, the Secret Service needs to start telling us whether or not they can actually keep somebody safe in these circumstances unless they're shutting down whole areas. And if that's what we have to do, then that's what we have to do. He's a former president running for re-election again. We have to be able to keep him safe. This is getting embarrassing for the agency, and people in Congress are bewildered why we're in this situation now for a second time. And so, yeah, Anderson, I mean, I'm very concerned about, the status of the Secret Service's ability to keep the former president safe in outdoor environments. But I went to Butler. I could not believe how close the roof was to the stage. And not just that, but the fence line that was outside the perimeter, they just let any individual run up to the fence. And those people did not go through magnetometers. And so the protocols going on right now and the resources being committed to the former president, in my question, seem to be wholly inadequate.
We had Jonathan Wackrow on, a former Secret Service agent, who was saying that he thinks the service needs to kind of reassess the criteria that they use. That it used to be, well, it's a person's a former president, therefore it's this level of protection, or they're a candidate for president. Donald Trump is sort of in a category of his own. I mean, he is a former president, but he's also seeking the office, and obviously has more attention than probably any former president. And so the question is, should his level be even higher already than it is now, which is higher than it was before Butler?
Yeah, well, look, I'm not a security expert, but let me give a third category. How about someone who was almost killed 2 months ago? How about that category? I mean, the idea that they haven't changed the protocols and we're still giving him the same sort of protection in these outdoor areas is unacceptable. So look, if the Secret Service now gets the point, right, and they're now going to change their protocols, well, congratulations, but it should have happened after the first attempt 2 months ago.
Have you heard from other of your colleagues in Congress tonight on either side of the aisle? I assume they're kind of saying all the same things.
I mean, look, obviously there are people who want to politicize this, for political gain, which I caution against. But yes, I've talked to members of both parties, and people just don't get it. They don't understand how we're in this situation for a second time. It is shaking the confidence, quite frankly, in our institutions. And that is something that's hard to explain to the American people, which is why I think the FBI and the Secret Service need to start having weekly briefings of information, trying to share what they know in both investigations with the American people to try to restore that faith. That's really what the task force is trying to do on a bipartisan basis. We're trying to restore faith in our institutions by getting to the bottom of what happened and sharing that information. I saw Governor DeSantis announce earlier today that he is going to have the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, I believe, conduct their own investigation. That's only warranted because, quite frankly, our national the FBI and the Secret Service aren't sharing the information that the American people are craving on the first assassination attempt, let alone seeing a second one. We have seen mass shootings in this country become normalized, and it's unacceptable. Now we're going to have political violence become normalized. I mean, we have to, on a bipartisan basis, Democrats and Republicans, make sure that we speak together on this. That the Secret Service and the FBI have to make sure that they keep former President Trump safe.
You're saying that you want the FBI, Secret Service, to the public to be more public-facing with the information they have and updates. Have they been cooperative enough, in your estimation, with your committee?
Yes, with our committee, they've been cooperative. We're getting briefings, we're getting classified briefings, but that's not to the American public. I understand the investigation is still going on, and I understand protocol as usual is, hey, we don't share information until the investigation is concluded. But these are extraordinary circumstances. We've never seen this. 2 assassination attempts in 62 days. And so this is going to require some out-of-the-box thinking. And in order, in my opinion, to restore faith in the institutions, they have to start sharing information with the American people. We can't allow there to be vacuums. When there's vacuums, right, we see misinformation start to fill, and we see politicization of the process.
Yeah. Congressman Jared Moskowitz, thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thanks, Anderson.
What history teaches us next about the never-ending threats the president faces, that is next after a short break. reaction to everything that's unfolded in the last few hours?
Oh God, not again, was my initial reaction. It was so painful and worrying in July when the first assassination attempt occurred. And the concerns we all had about how that might contribute to increasing this culture, of this toxic culture that we live in, those concerns are back again. We had that moment, as you remember, after the first assassination attempt, where both political parties were talking about the importance of lowering the tension, reducing the temperature, if you will, of our political rhetoric. And in the debate just the other day, President Trump sort of verged on blaming Vice President Harris and the Democrats for that first assassination attempt. So I first of all, it's horrible that he and his family are undergoing this trauma. It's a terrible shock to the country. I'm concerned about what follows. Will we have once again the discussion about the importance of lowering the temperature, or is this going to quickly become politicized and we see more violence as a result?
Is there a historical precedent? I mean, Ronald Reagan was shot once. Gerald Ford, there was a Squeaky Fromm's attempt. Has anyone had two attempts?
Yes, Gerald Ford, 17 days apart, September 1975. Squeaky Fromm and Sarah Jane Moore. By the way, both attempted assassins are still alive. Sarah Jane Moore wanted to start a violent revolution and felt that the way to do that was to kill the President of the United States. She has since recanted those views and felt that she's very happy she did not kill Gerald Ford. But both of these individuals sought to change our political system through violence. So it is a sad fact of our life, of our world, of our culture, that given the importance of the President of the United States to us all, that unstable individuals seeking to actually steal the vote from all of us try to change our system by going after the president, killing him. It is a fact of American life. It doesn't happen all the time, but once again, it's happened. And it's a reminder that this is bred in the bone. This is not something new in our political history.
And traditionally, I mean, political violence doesn't solve political problems in this country. I mean, in the past, it's engendered more political violence, right?
Oh my God. Well, we're a country that went through a civil war. No, political violence never solves the political dispute. Our entire system is based on the belief that we can rationally debate with each other, disagree with each other, and come to some kind of resolution. Separation of powers, the separation of powers doctrine is not the basis for warfare. It's the basis for consensus. So no, our system was not set up to survive political violence. And as we know, in the 19th century, it very nearly didn't survive political violence.
Tim Naftali, thank you. Appreciate you being here with us tonight. This afternoon, the Palm Beach County Sheriff described the events that unfolded in the moments after an agent spotted the barrel of a gun poking out of that fence on the golf course where the former president was playing. Listen to what he said.
1:30 this afternoon, call came out, shots fired. That was called in by the Secret Service. Because we're in constant contact with them all the time, we were notified of that, and we had units here that immediately sealed off the area. Fortunately, we were able to locate a witness that came to us and said, hey, I saw the guy running out of the bushes. He jumped into a black Nissan, and I took a picture of the vehicle and the tag, which was great. So we had that information. Our real-time crime center put it out to the license plate readers. And we were able to get a hit on that vehicle on I-95 as it was headed into Martin County. We got a hold of Martin County Sheriff's Office, alerted them, and they spotted the vehicle and pulled it over and detained the guy. After that, we took the the witness that witnessed the incident, flew him up there, and he identified as the person that he saw running out of the bushes and jumped into the car. Now, in the bushes where this guy was is a AK-47 style rifle with a scope, 2 backpacks which were hung on the fence that had ceramic tile in them, and a GoPro, which he was going to take pictures of. So those are being processed right now. The Secret Service agent that was on the course did a fantastic job. What they do is they have an agent that jumps one hole ahead of time to where the president was at. And he was able to spot this rifle barrel sticking out of the fence and immediately engage that individual, at which time the individual took off.
I'm joined now by Donnell Harvin, the former Chief of Homeland Security and Intelligence for the District of Columbia. I mean, there's still a lot we don't know. What do you think the FBI specifically, what is top of the list of things they're trying to figure out?
Well, obviously, everyone has access to his social media history. So that's one thing that they're looking at. That's a whole separate team that's looking at if there's any accomplices. I mean, quite frankly, the opportunity to be at the right place at the right time to take a shot at the former president is quite astonishing. And in terrorism and counterterrorism, we teach about these cycles of radicalization. We teach about this mobilization of violence, and it often begins with a violent ideation and then moves into a stage that we call pre-operational surveillance. And so just happening to be at the right time in the right place, this individual may have been filmed or someone may have known that he was going there. I don't know how he knows that the president was going to be golfing that day, but that's certainly something they're looking at to see if they can link him to other individuals that may have had information that assisted him.
If it's remarkable that it was, as law enforcement talked about, some eyewitness happened to notice this person coming out of bushes and jumping in their vehicle. I don't know how it was how long that person was there, how long their vehicle was, I guess, parked just on the side of the road by this golf course, that wasn't picked up. But if it wasn't for this eyewitness taking a picture of the vehicle, it certainly seems like this would not have, at least this person would not have been apprehended as quickly as they were.
And Anderson, in our business, we say this every day. If you see something, say something. If you look at this incident and juxtapose that versus the incident in Pennsylvania, you see the same elements, right? You see members of the public reporting to law enforcement that they're seeing something. Obviously in Butler, things went awry, but in this case, everything went exactly how it's supposed to be. And as we say in our business, the bad guys only have to be lucky once, and we have to be exact 100% of the time. This played out exactly how it should have been. Witnesses told law enforcement, the Secret Service were on the same communications lines we call interoperable communications with local and state law enforcement. All levels of government were working towards the same ends, and we had a successful outcome. The former president wasn't injured, and this potential subject was apprehended.
The Palm Beach County Sheriff said that President Trump's golf course would have been surrounded with protection, in their words, if he were the sitting president, but the Secret Service was limited in the areas that it was able to cover ahead of the incident because he's a former president and a candidate. How do you think he should be protected going forward when he's at a golf course or an open area that's harder to secure?
Well, you just had the historian on. This is only the second time in history that we've had a presidential candidate with two attempts on his life. And it's far be it from me to tell the Secret Service or the U.S. government how to protect this individual. But let's look at the outcome if President Trump had been seriously wounded or, God forbid, killed in Butler or today. This country would be in a state unlike anything we've ever seen. And so while the U.S. government has declared that the election process is critical infrastructure and is key to the ongoing success of our democracy, the individuals that are key to that process, the current vice president and the former president, President Trump, need to be protected as much as possible to ensure that the election goes smoothly and that there's a smooth transition of power to either one of those individuals.
Donnell Harvin, I appreciate your expertise. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
More of our special coverage when we come back.
There is a storm coming, an event like the world has never seen before. The emerging event will have little to do with weather, but more about developing situations that were foreseen many years ago. We have always warned you during severe weather and news events that affected many. Now, Channel 1 Atlanta begins a new series to warn you about what's coming soon and make sure you are prepared. Join us on a new journey, as according to a recent survey, a lot of people believe we are living in the last days. Current news events show us now more than ever. In history, time is setting the stage for the coming storm, a new series, now playing only on Channel 1 Atlanta.
Again, a confirmed tornado on the ground in downtown Conyers. This is a very dangerous and life-threatening weather event. Get into the interior section of your house, away from windows or a basement if you have. And there's the debris right there in the Millstead area near the Rockdale Medical Center. Right. Channel 1 Atlanta.
CNN's Kyung La is in Los Angeles with new information on the investigation. What have you heard, Kyung?
Well, I want to go to reporting from our Josh Campbell, who has been talking to his sources at the FBI and is learning that as we speak, Anderson, the investigation is now going global. What authorities are trying to do is try to understand a little bit more about this man who ended up on that near that golf course, 58-year-old Ryan Wesley Routh. According to Josh's sources, authorities are working to obtain search warrants on various social media accounts believed to be associated associated with him. Some of these images that you're looking at to your screen here, these are images that our investigative unit has been able to cull from his various social media accounts that are available online. The suspected online activity is also involving some of these platforms that are located outside of the United States. And what the FBI is also aware of are some of his online claims about foreign travel. And I want to zero in on something here, Anderson. The pictures that you're seeing come from a GoFundMe account. And on that account, Routh claims that he went to Kyiv in 2022. He was raising money to try to support his travel that appears to be completely done on his own. On that GoFundMe website site, he is encouraging others to join him. It is unofficial. He claims that he is staying with people aligned with the military, that he's donating military devices to some of the fighters in Ukraine. And our team is also gathering a little more of a background about where he comes from in the United States. We believe, according to public records searches, that he was splitting time between Hawaii and North Carolina, that in Hawaii, he was a self-employed affordable housing builder. He started in 2018 a company called Camp Box Honolulu, building some of those storage units and tiny houses, and that he had donated a structure to some homeless people. In North Carolina, though, we are getting through some of the federal campaign finance records, a donation of $100, more than $100 to Act Blue, which processes donations to Democratic campaigns. He had registered as an unaffiliated voter, that is without a party affiliation in 2012, but he had voted in the March 2024 Democratic primary. And it also shows, according to North Carolina public records, that he had a number of brushes with the law. In 2002, he had a weapon. He had been pulled over by police, and that he barricaded himself in a building. That is something that police did recently confirm after his arrest on Sunday, and that he had a number of according to public records, Anderson, that he had issues with the courts and failing to pay taxes. Anderson.
Kyung Ah, thanks very much. More now on the breaking news. Tomorrow, the acting Secret Service director heads to Florida. Ronald Rowe got to the top job after the director resigned in July in a hail of criticism, you may remember, after the first assassination attempt on Trump in Pennsylvania. Back now with our panel, Julia Kayyem, Daniel Brunner, and Jonathan Wackrow. Daniel, it's interesting to see those pictures of this guy. I guess those were taken early on in Ukraine. As somebody who was in Ukraine for a couple of weeks at the start of the war in Lviv, you would see a whole bunch of folks coming there from the U.S. Some of them, had legit military training in the U.S. and were there believing in the cause and wanting to help and volunteer where they could or train others. And then you'd also see just some folks who kind of washed ashore there with, running from something or just seeing this as some kind of opportunity to jumpstart their life. And so I'm curious to learn more about what this person was actually doing. Was he one of those people who just kind of got attracted to that and went? Did he actually have, was he actually, contributing in some way? There's certainly still a lot we don't know about this person.
There's a lot that's going to be looked at. The digital evidence that this individual left behind is clearly tremendous. We're going to be looking at all his CCTV, all his social media, and they're going to be looking back a number of years because obviously he's had an extensive social media presence going back to before the war in Ukraine. So they're going to be looking all the way back before that. They're going to look at what his motivations were for going to Ukraine, and then was he affected in Ukraine? Did that motivation come to the United States? And then as a processing and during the course of the investigation, that'll all be analyzed, that'll all be looked at, and to look for other mitigating factors that could have sent this individual down that road to prepare for this attack, and understanding what the motivation was going on as far back as pre-war Ukraine.
And Julia, the fact that he had, allegedly had a GoPro that he was going to be using to document either if he was pulling the trigger or, showing downrange what happened when he pulled the trigger. That indicates certainly a desire to broadcast, whether in real time or later, what was going to be done.
Right, that's exactly right. We've seen it in mass shooting cases. We've seen them in terrorism cases. The performative nature of the violence, and so it's not enough just to kill or assassinate a former president. It is you've got to document it, and we don't know if he wanted to live stream it. We don't know what he was intending to do with it, but we can, I think, rationally deduce that part of it was the amplification of the violence itself. He lived very online. He was very vocal. We see all of these pictures, and so that is something that suggests to me that this was well planned out over time, and we just don't know what sort of triggered it in the last couple of weeks or months.
And Jonathan, if this was a last minute, schedule, put it on the schedule, go play golf, that also raises questions about, how he knew about it.
No, it actually does raise questions again. But when we start looking at this individual, it is not normal for someone to wake up and decide I'm going to go shoot the former president, right? The investigators right now are looking at the pathway to violence, his grievances, his violent ideations, his pre-attack planning. All of this will come out through the investigation, to include how did he know that the president was going to be there on that day.
Yeah, everybody, thank you for joining me. I'm Anderson Cooper. Our breaking news coverage continues next with Jim Sciutto. We'll be right back.
out exactly like it did today. But somewhere along the line, the Secret Service is broken. Why these very basic situations aren't being played out and aren't being the basic situations that a site security survey should be built around is beyond me. But that speaks to the lack of leadership and foresight on behalf of the senior leadership at the U.S. Secret Service. And now people are being allowed to resign with impunity. What, after what happened today and what happened 2 months ago, people are just going to be afforded the opportunity to simply walk away from their jobs with no repercussions and keep their pensions? This is absolutely unacceptable.
Richard Sarapoli, we thank you so much for your expertise today. Appreciate it. The second hour of Big Weekend Show begins right now.
How far away was the president? How far away was Donald Trump when this gentleman was caught and stopped?
I got it. Probably between 300 and 500 yards, but with a rifle and a scope like that, that's not a long distance.
Hello, everyone. I'm Molly Line, along with Alicia Acuna, Charlie Hurt, and Joe Concha, and welcome to the Big Weekend Show. The big story tonight: a second assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump. The Republican presidential candidate says he is safe and well after being targeted while golfing at the Trump International Golf Club in West Palm Beach this afternoon. The suspected gunman's car was pulled over by Martin County Police, where he was taken into custody. Also found at the scene where the shots were fired were weapons hanging on a fence. There were 2 bags, a GoPro, and a long gun. Over 2 months ago, the former president survived a first assassination attempt during his rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. The former president has responded to the shooting, writing, "There were gunshots in my vicinity, but before rumors start spiraling out of control, I wanted you to hear this first. I am safe and well. Nothing will slow me down. I will never surrender." Joining us now is Mark Levin, host of Life, Liberty, and Levin, and former chief of staff to Attorney General Edwin Meese in the Reagan administration. Thank you for coming on this evening. I just want to start with getting your insights on what has been a truly remarkable day.
Well, let's start this way. Thank you. Who's in charge? Who's in charge? We don't have any idea who's in charge. Who's in charge of protecting a presidential candidate in this country? Well, we can talk about the Secret Service, the FBI, DHS. I listen to all your great hosts with their tremendous experience, and it is fascinating to me. You know, I'm a little older. I served in the Reagan administration. I was chief of staff to Attorney General Meese, and let me tell you what would have happened in that administration. Ronald Reagan would have picked up the phone. He would have called Attorney General Meese. He would have said, "You're in charge of getting to the bottom of this, and you got 48 hours to do it." Meese, who I worked next to, he would have called the Treasury Secretary. He would have called every department that has any role in federal law enforcement. FBI reports to him. He would have dragged Christopher Wray up there. He would have brought in the U.S. Marshals. He would have brought them all in. Secret Service, Secretary of DHS. We would have been in the Situation Room with the United States Department of Justice. And Ed Meese would have said to all those gathered, "You better GD get to the bottom of this, and you have 48 hours to report to me, and I want to know how you're going to fix this. And I want to know right away how you're going to fix this. Twice on our watch? Never." Instead, we have very wise people who worked at the FBI, who worked at Secret Service, who worked in local law enforcement. Where's the Secret Service? Where's the FBI? Nobody is in charge because we have a president of the United States who's mentally incapacitated. We have a vice president of the United States who's an incompetent, way over her head. We have an attorney general of the United States who just held a press event the other day about violence, and he's, what, in the witness protection program, the top 3 people in charge of law enforcement in the United States of America. 2 of them tweeted, 1 of them did nothing. Now, this isn't about tweeting. Oh, I'm so glad that President Trump is well. Well, isn't that nice? The executive branch is run by the President of the United States. Number 2, the Vice President of the United States. Federal law enforcement, ultimately, the Attorney General of the United States. And they're all AWOL. They're nowhere. So it's perfectly fine if we keep banging heads about the head of the Secret Service, the head of the FBI. These are bureaucrats mostly. Mayorkas We know what he is. He's a complete incompetent buffoon. But where the hell is the president, the vice president who wants to be president, and the attorney general, who has done absolutely nothing to get his hands around this? Now, I'm telling you this as somebody who served at the highest level of the Department of Justice, that justice wouldn't sit back and wait for a local special agent in charge in Miami to take over. They'd be sending guys in there from Washington, D.C., and Meese would have wanted to report every hour on the damn hour. And he'd want to know what we're going to do to fix this. And I can also tell you that the first time around this would have happened had Ed Meese been the Attorney General, Reagan been the President of the United States. So this is all evidence to me when I listen to everybody, and they're all fantastic. But it's all evidence to me of Keystone Cops. Who's in charge of what? Well, it depends. This one should have done that. This should have done... No. We need a general who's in charge and says, I want to know who the hell screwed up. I want to know what the hell we're going to do to fix this next time, what resources we need. And I don't want to hear again that the Secret Service doesn't have resources. We're $5 friggin' trillion in debt with this administration. Maybe a little bit of that climate change money or money going to illegal aliens. Maybe that money could have been moved into the Secret Service. I have no idea. But we have no time to figure all that out. We have 50 days until a presidential election. Let me ask you a question. Does Joe Biden seem that concerned tonight? Where is he? Does Kamala Harris seem that concerned tonight? Well, she tweeted. Isn't that nice? I tweeted too. So what? The Attorney General of the United States, does he seem that concerned tonight? No. They just don't give a you-know-what, and they won't take charge of this. So the executive branch is running adrift. That is what's happening. Every part of it, including the best parts of it, the federal law enforcement parts of it, they're now running adrift. I speak as a former person who served at the highest level of the Department of Justice.
So, Mark, Charlie Hurt here. Obviously, you're exactly right about President Biden being completely MIA and has been for a long time in the presidency. But we're sort of back at this. After the Butler, Pennsylvania shooting, there was all of this professed unity where President Biden and others talked about how they were going to lower the rhetoric. But now we're back to where you have Democrats issuing tweets saying that they're glad that the guy they called last week Hitler survived another assassination attempt. Mm-hmm. It strikes me that maybe they didn't really mean it when they said it 6 weeks ago.
Of course they don't mean it. If you watch MSNBC for about 15 minutes, the hate and the drivel and the contempt that pours out of their pores from Joy Reid and, don't get me started with the long list. CNN, so contemptible. Every time they mention Trump's name, they have this constipated look on their face, like it's unbearable. The way that you have prosecutors talk about Donald Trump, elected prosecutors and a Garland-appointed prosecutor, the things that they say in their briefs are so horrendous. What some of these judges have to say, the Democrat Party controls the culture, they control the media, they control the propaganda, they now control many of the court systems, and that's exactly what you're seeing. You're seeing a one-party monopolistic system. And people have written about this long before me, who've gone through these various regimes, totalitarian regimes, their use of words, creating devil terms and angel terms. Trump's always the devil, Kamala Harris is the angel. And you can see this endless propaganda and contempt. And by the way, they hate you and me, too. They've made it abundantly clear they hate at least half the country. So, of course, this contributes to the nut jobs out there and so forth. But still, I don't know how much we can do to fix that. I do know we can do something to fix the executive branch. And we got to boot these people out as fast as possible, take these agencies back. We need to fumigate them. We need to get people in there who are serious public servants and civil servants. We need to put competent people in senior positions. We need to take the FBI back. We need to take all the federal agencies, and particularly the police agencies, back. We need to take the Department of Justice back. And we can do that in the next election, because right now they're completely and utterly either out of control or rudderless.
Mark, it's Joe Concha. I'm going to read a quote from Lester Holt,
who was reporting on this assassination attempt, again, the second in 64 days. Here's what he said tonight on the NBC Nightly News, and you're going to get a real kick out of this. Quote, today's apparent assassination attempt comes amid increasingly fierce rhetoric on the campaign trail. Mr. Trump, his running mate J.D. Vance continue to make baseless claims about Haitian immigrants in Springfield, Ohio, resulting in bomb threats. So in other words, it's Trump's fault that somebody tried to shoot him today because of something that was said about Springfield, Ohio, which has had an influx of thousands upon thousands of Haitian immigrants to their town. And because Trump brings that up and because J.D. Vance brings that up, therefore, that's what's leading this. I'll let you go from here because I can't believe what I just saw right now on the NBC Nightly News.
Sickening. Absolutely sickening. No, actually, I thought it was all the Democrats and their anti-Semitism. I thought it was all the Democrats and their anti-Israel. I thought it was all the Democrats hunting down Jews on universities and college campuses. I thought they were the problem. I thought it was all the illegal immigrants raping, murdering, selling into slavery, women and children. Maybe Lester Holt has a difficulty digesting facts around him. This guy is not a Haitian. In fact, the more I'm reading I'm getting information he may have been an anti-Semite. I don't know what he is. We'll get the facts. But Lester Holt doesn't have any facts, does he? And you know what? If you tried to do a Google search of the number of times Donald Trump is called Hitler, I think your computer would melt down. I think your computer would melt down. To dumb down what Hitler is in order to try and turn... Look, let's be honest. They've been trying to turn Trump into a non-human. And that's what they've been trying to do from the beginning. They're dehumanizing him. And they've been doing this. I've written about this in 2 books. The way they treat him, the way they talk about him, their facial actions, and so forth and so on. And that debate with Kamala Harris is more of the same. The facial tics, you're a disgrace, totally non-substantive, how he's a threat. You said you would burn down. I mean, just stupid things. Charlottesville, all these lies, trying to create a caricature. They want to run against a caricature. They want to create a caricature. Unfortunately, the culture is very sick, in large measure due to the media. But I don't want to miss the fact that the problem that's going on in federal law enforcement today is at the top. It's at the very, very top with the president, with Harris, with Merrick Garland. Those are the 3 who are responsible for what takes place. They are in charge, not anybody else. And that's why everybody's running around like Keystone Cops, who's in charge of what.
Mark, it's Alicia Cunha, and thank you so much for being here. You know, as you know, the acting U.S. Secret Service Director, Ronald Rowe, gave an update to senators on Thursday on the internal investigation from the July 13th assassination attempt. And Senator Blumenthal told Fox folks are going to be shocked, appalled, and astonished. I would argue they already are. How are Americans supposed to absorb the findings of that internal investigation as we are now going to be learning so much more about this latest assassination attempt? It just seems so much for the American people.
You know, we're grown-ups here. We really have a way to deal with this. You know, in most regimes, we do not. One day we may not hear, but we do right now. The same people who have destroyed our economy and destroyed our border, who are destroying law enforcement, destroying our military, the same people who are destroying our alliances, are destroying our FBI and our Secret Service and our Department of Justice and our Department of Homeland Security. I mean, they're good at one thing, they're consistent. And so if you want to fix it, our Constitution gives you an option. The option is to kick their asses out of office and bring in people who are serious. We didn't have this sort of thing 4 years ago. Not in any of these areas that I talked about, and we have it now, and it's completely out of control. And the only way to deal with it right now, we have 50 days, is in 50 days. And we need to deal with it. You know, it's one thing for we as citizens to whine about this stuff, but I want people to remember about Thomas Paine. I want them to remember about Paul Revere. People say, well, what can I do? You know, I'm a janitor, I'm an electrician. You can do a hell of a lot. You are the Paul Reveres and you are the Thomas Paines. You need to talk to 10 people. You need to talk to 15 people. You need to make sure you not only vote early, you get people vote early. We can't rely on political parties to get out the vote. We have to get out the vote. It's now. We have 50 days to try and fix this right now.
Well, Mark, for all of us, thank you so much for being here tonight and sharing your perspective. We appreciate it. Mark Levin.
God bless. Thank you.
And right now, the FBI is collecting evidence outside of Trump National Golf Club, and that's where Dana Marie McNichol is live tonight. Dana Marie. Okay, so we're still waiting for Dana Marie McNichol to get up there and her information. But Paul, I want to go to you actually, if we can, just to continue this conversation. Some of the points that Mark Levin was making, he just really hammered on this idea of leadership, because Americans want leadership right now, and they're not seeing it.
It beggars belief that we still have not gotten a press conference from Alejandro Mayorkas relative to the failures of the Secret Service. What we should have gotten is, first of all, Mayorkas very early in the game after Butler, but then subsequent to that, there should have been a press conference about how the service under him is being rebuilt and the measures that were taken to fix what was clearly a flaw. It seems that only in our current regime do these sort of flaws seem to fall by the wayside. They're on the cutting room floor. Nobody seems to care. And think about the signal it sends to our adversaries. If we could get two apparent clowns who are low level to manage to almost do what they almost did here, not only in Butler, but down in Florida, what does it say to the IRGC in Iran? What does it say to some of our more radicalized enemies around the world? What it says is America's not what they used to be. We don't have to worry about these guys. They don't even seem to be able to protect one of their main VIPs, who may very well be the next president. It is a diminution of American stature, American status, and the fact that we can't do this. If you're sitting where, let's say, the Chinese or the Russians are, you got to say, we don't have to worry about these guys.
Would you be worried, Paul, to my point earlier, and I asked Mark this, I asked Jason this as well, that a 20-year-old outflanked the entire Secret Service and the local police of Butler, Pennsylvania, in getting on that roof, right, which the best line of sight you could possibly imagine, hit a rifle behind an air conditioner, then went back and got it, and got up there, and if Trump doesn't turn his head to read a chart that he never reads during a speech, he's dead right now. The 20-year-old outflanks the Secret Service. Now we have this situation where somebody's waiting for him at the 6th hole, and thank God there was one Secret Service individual who spotted him. What if the Iranians said, you know what, let's send in a team, 5, 6, 7 people to take out Trump? I don't see how they stop this from happening at this point.
And to your point, we have there's no shortage, and I'm going to use the Stalinist term, of useful idiots on the ground here in America who would be only too happy to facilitate.
Yeah.
So, just reverse the roles, right? Imagine you had to plan an operation in Tehran, right? Or in Beijing, in Moscow. Think about how hard that would be for you if you didn't have somebody on the ground to help you, or if you're sitting with the adversaries that you're talking about they have to say to themselves, you know what, you see what's going on the campuses? Well, there's ripe pickings for people in country who will assist. And we've heard the reporting that Iran apparently seems to have some funding relative to the groups that are protesting on campus. And look, nobody is saying that the groups on campus tried to kill Donald Trump. I'm not making that connection, but what I am saying is that if you're sitting where those adversaries are, they know they have better reach in. And when you consider the border as an overlay, I did 15 years of counterterrorism post 9/11, okay? And I can tell you when somebody showed up on a set who we knew nothing about, had no border friction coming into the country, no biometrics, there was no footprint, every alarm bell went off. Who is this guy? Where did he come from? We don't know where he is. We're trying to look into him. We got a name. The name doesn't come back. From here to Washington, everybody started, you'd put surveillance, you do all kinds of stuff within the law to make sure that you button that person up, you put him to bed at night, you woke him up in the morning, okay? We got 20 million of those that just came into the country.
Well, following along on this, one of the hallmarks, the sad hallmarks of 9/11, was that it was carried out by a bunch of people that were holding box cutters. Sure. It was the most rudimentary plan you could possibly imagine. And then you fast forward to this and you say, 20 years later, 20, whatever it is, 3 years later, and you're wondering, so we're just sort of riding by on luck again?
Yeah.
Have we learned nothing?
It seems that way. And, when you consider that the world is getting smaller and more dangerous, and all the old battles are still going on, all the stuff that we've had all of our lives, think about if you're sitting where Hezbollah is, right?
Yeah.
Donald Trump took out one of their beloved, right? One of their main leaders. Now, if Donald Trump becomes president, They have 4 years to exact revenge. So Donald Trump gets in there, you got to know that he's going to be cleaning this up, because we can't count on anybody else. There seems to be no sense of urgency.
And they don't need to wait for him to become president again to take out revenge.
They got plenty of time here. They would have essentially, if till 20 January. Right, if it were to come to that, and if you're sitting where they are, the message is it's not that hard.
How concerned should we be as this? We're praising the bravery of the Secret Service agent that was ahead by a hole and the people that got to the car. How concerned should we be about potential booby traps and other people involved with this individual, Ryan Wesley Ruth?
So as we saw in the Crooks case, right, out in Butler, he had some IEDs, right? Fortunately, they were not active, and so they didn't go up. But you always have to allow for that. Generally, situations
IED,
like this,
Paul, I'm sorry, just for the layman's at home.
The general thing is that you have to assume that he's got people with him, he's got people who will help him, and that there could be something that could detonate if you go into the room too fast, etc. So you do have to assume that, and you have to say to yourself, according to the reporting that we're getting, he's not from the area. You got to wonder what his support network was. How did he keep heart and soul together? All right. Was he working? Where's the money coming from? These questions are all going to be asked. And, right now, you don't have good, quick answers. It looks like some of the answers we get back may be troubling. It looks like there may be some overseas travel and things like that. And so if those reports are accurate, there's going to be a lot more questions here. And it's a good point. You have to assume there could be some real nefarious forces behind him until you know there are not.
Paul Mauro, thank you. So glad you are staying with us tonight. We really appreciate it. Right now, the FBI is collecting evidence outside of Trump National Golf Club, and that is where we find Dana Marie McNichol. I think we have her signal now. She is live on the ground there tonight. Dana Marie, what is happening there as we speak?
Well, right now I'm standing just outside Trump International Golf Course entrance. There is red tape surrounding where I'm standing. This is the case for many roads around the golf course. Shut off to the public. There's heavy law enforcement presence here. Now, right now, we're about a 12-minute drive from Mar-a-Lago, where that former president lives. Playing golf on a Sunday is a common occurrence for him. Now, you mentioned the FBI collecting evidence. At another location, we have a camera at that mobile command center. Both FBI and local law enforcement, they have been doing what it looks like, collecting evidence, inspecting what could be a hole or a gap in the shrubbery. This investigation goes well into the night. I also want to get to a map of the golf course so you can see hole 5 and hole 6. Those holes are parallel to a public street. That's where the investigation is going on right now. That's where FBI and investigators are posted up. Now, former President Trump told Bret Baier this afternoon that he was on hole 5 when he was quickly taken away off a golf cart into the clubhouse. Secret Service said in the press conference that agents are always one hole ahead of the former president to make sure the area is cleared. The Secret Service said an agent on that golf course noticed that a rifle was pointed at a chain link fence along the course, and that's when agents shot at the suspect who fled. Now, Palm Beach County Sheriff Rick Bradshaw said the gunman had an AK-style rifle with a scope, 2 backpacks hanging on a fence, and a GoPro camera. They said the suspect was about 400 to 500 yards away from the former president, hidden in that shrubbery while he was playing golf. Now, a witness was a huge help with the police in this investigation who did see that male run from the golf course bushes and jump into a black Nissan. The witness gave the plate numbers to police who pulled over the suspect on I-95 in Martin County. We now have the name of that suspect, Ryan Wesley Routh. He is now in police custody, and we are waiting on his mugshot. Police are also working on search warrants for his car. Now, when asked about adding more resources for the former president, here's what the Secret Service rep said.
Yes, the threat level is high. We have increased the amount of assets that we've supported, so we live in danger times.
Now, as the investigation continues, the FBI has asked the community for their help. If you have any information about the suspects or if you saw anything, call that FBI tip line. We are still waiting to see if that suspect will be in court tomorrow or later this week. We're on the ground right now. It is pouring rain right now, but of course we're going to keep you updated and bring you the latest from Palm Beach. I'll send it back to you.
Dana Marie, thank you. This second attempted assassination follows the first one in Butler, Pennsylvania, July 13th. Congress is currently investigating the first shooting. Our next guest is a member of the bipartisan task force on the attempted assassination of former President Trump. Let's bring in Florida Congresswoman Laurel Lee. Laurel, thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it. So here we have a situation where, again, just incredible that and quite frankly disturbing that for the second time in 64 days, somebody tried to take the life of the former president who currently could be the next president. Your thoughts as far as, were there failures here? Is this the new normal? And what can we do to prevent this from happening again?
Well, there are a couple of things that are important when it comes to the Secret Service's job protecting people like President Trump. The first is, of course, we've heard about the differences between the type of resources assigned to a sitting president versus a candidate. But there's a second piece that's very important, and that is that the Secret Service and law enforcement respond to the actual threat environment. So where a particular person, whether it is the sitting president or a candidate or another person that's a Secret Service protectee, is facing actual threats of a certain level, those resources increase. And that's clearly what we see here, that President Trump is under serious threat. This is the second now attempt in just a short span of time. And so it's evident that we need the highest level of resources assigned to be on his detail and protecting him. There is an important distinction, though, for the events of today that we should note. And that is this. In the task force, we've spent a lot of time looking at the failures and the breakdowns and the things that went wrong in the days and the hours leading up to that attempt on President Trump's life. And today, we do have agents on the ground who were with the president who took swift and decisive action to stop this threat, and the president is safe tonight. So this was a very significant and important success by the agents who were with the president today. That being said, clearly our work is ongoing to take a look at what resources are there, what resources are assigned, and are they adequate to meet this intense threat environment that clearly exists in the United States of America today.
So, Congresswoman Charlie Hurt here. Thanks for joining us tonight. Can you, you've been obviously studying this very closely ever since Butler. Can you point to any large systemic changes that have been made that should give American citizens any sort of relief or any sort of optimism that the government is taking this stuff seriously?
Well, I do know that within Secret Service, they have been taking a very close look at that allocation of resource question. I do believe the level of resources and agents assigned to President Trump's detail has been increased. But the question that's more important is it enough? And it certainly doesn't appear so when we have a threat level that is this significant and this severe facing President Trump. And Joe Biden and Kamala Harris should come out right now and direct every agency that has a role here, from Department of Justice to the FBI to the Secret Service, to put their full force, effort, and attention and resources on making sure that President Trump is kept safe, just like the other protectees, Vice President Harris and others, should be kept safe if they are under protection. And there is a reality to the number of Secret Service agents that we have. There's a finite number of agents. And so we need to make sure that they are able to hire and retain and train the best and the brightest. And if what we're seeing in America today, and I believe it is what we're seeing, is that we are just living in an extremely elevated threat environment. Director Wray of the FBI has been telling us this. He has testified in front of Congress multiple times and made clear and left us with the warnings about the extraordinary level of threat in our country today, that we need to be taking a serious look at whether we are allocating resources correctly. Do we need more Secret Service agents? Do the ones that are there need more support? But whatever it is, it's time for the executive branch of our government to make crystal clear that that is their priority and that they are willing to do whatever it takes to keep President Trump safe while he is out on the campaign trail.
Congressman Lee, one of the things that I found so frustrating since the first assassination attempt on former President Trump is that a lot of the information we've been getting is through Congress, which is great, and whistleblowers that have been giving them information, instead of what we're still waiting for, which is this internal report from the Secret Service that may come out this week. Here we are. There's another assassination attempt against the former president, and I'm hoping that maybe answers come a little more swiftly. What do you expect to hear from investigators in these coming weeks, and can we put pressure on them to give the American people answers quicker? We're going to be 50 days from Election Day very shortly.
And you're making such an important point, because transparency is one of the most critical things that we can provide for the American people right now. And that was a key difference between the Butler situation and today. It is a good thing that one of the first things that happened was law enforcement came forward, Secret Service, local law enforcement. They made themselves available. They had a press conference. They shared what they knew. Of course, that's only partial information, and there will be more information coming out in the weeks to come. One other key distinction here is that we have the suspect in custody. So one of the things that we will be finding out here in the coming days, is he talking? Has he shared information with investigators? So that's one thing that could be a critical difference. We'll also have the opportunity, of course, to take a look at his social media, his contacts. What's he doing? What can we learn about him? What can we glean? Now, going back to Butler, that's exactly the type of information. So the first thing that we will hear is really about the preparation, the planning, and some of the things that went wrong that day. We know already that the planning and the site preparation obviously wasn't done adequately. The perimeter should have been broader. The buildings that were there at the site, they weren't very numerous. Those buildings where that man was able to get up on that roof should have been secured. But the other really important thing that we've learned about Butler is the failure to communicate. That we had a team of local law enforcement and federal law enforcement there together, but that their communication wasn't adequate. So if one person saw something, another person that was there might not have known it, which is so foundational to the success of any type of security mission. So I believe that the internal report that we see will have a lot of information about the mistakes that were made in the planning and in the execution of securing that Butler rally. We hope to also see a lot more information about the shooter that day and what led him to that moment and what caused him to take that horrific action. So for us, getting out there and seeing the site has been so important for the task force. A number of us have been out there together. Some of us have been out there twice. To have the ability to actually walk those grounds and see where the men and women in law enforcement were, where the rally goers were, and help us understand the type of action and response that's necessary by Secret Service in planning and preparing for an event like that.
Congresswoman Lee, it's Alicia Acuna. Thank you so much for talking to us. We are up against a hard break, but I'm just curious, would your task force also take on